Sister Wives, Season 1, Episode 4, Third Wife in Labor. Thank you for being here during our rewatch of the first season. This was originally aired in October 11th, 2010. This is actually our second attempt because I screwed up the first attempt and John is being so nice for not being angry at how Sister Wives has slowly overtaken our entire schedule.
And making you shrink.
And making me shrink. John stole my chair. Normally we don't have matching chairs because we just can't, I guess, afford it. And I normally give him the slightly shorter chair and he takes the slightly taller chair, but he's really living up the fact that he's got the tall chair. And I feel like I'm slowly sinking out of frame throughout the filming. This is one of the big episodes that people constantly refer to. This is Third Wife in Labor. This is Christine giving birth to Truly when Cody is kissing up on Robin. It's worse than I remember. There's a lot of facts that I didn't remember. John doesn't care. John's like, they're polygamous, whatever. I will be incensed. John will not care.
Was he there for the birth?
I mean, parts of it. This is also the guy, though, when I gave birth, after about 24 hours, was like, I have to leave this hospital room. And I was like, if you leave this room, I will kill you. And we negotiated, and then he left for 2 hours.
Probably.
I mean, an hour and a half, maybe, and got some food and came right back. And I was like...
It's unnatural to be in a building that long.
Not just a building. A single room with an attached bathroom.
That too.
Because we were on the ground floor and it was snowing the whole time, you couldn't even see out the windows. You could see this much out the top of the window. You could like angle your head and see out into the sky. You see a little sliver of sky. And most of the times it was just solid white up there because it was snowing. And but I was terrified to be left alone with a baby.
That you didn't even know.
I didn't even know him. Barely met the guy. 24 hours earlier.
Wasn't a real talker.
I did have a C-section and was having a lot of pain from that. So that could contribute. And I already passed out once. So after the C-section, the nurse got me up after about 12 hours to go remove the catheter that they put in. And I passed out in the bathroom and flattened her. Took it out, was washing my hands. I don't know. She turned away for a split second, and I just went, oh. She tried to catch me, and I was, of course, still enormous, and I flattened her like a bug. And she got me into the ground, and then I remember waking up, and she was terrified, and she's like pulling on the cord, and everyone came running in, and you're like, hey, is everything okay? I was fine, but
yeah, totally fine.
I gave her a real run for her money on that. Back to the show. So we start off with, they're talking about the fact that Christine is going to have a hospitable birth. and they do normally, polygamists don't. They have home births. And they talk about how, you know, we normally don't do it because the hospital will take the baby, or I don't know what they're basically saying that they can't be out as polygamists, so they do home birth. But then I'm like, well, you're filming a documentary. That boat has sailed. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And we know that a lot of people like home births. I totally respect that if you had a home birth. It just was not for me. We had a very complicated miscarriage before my son. Like very much. I had 3 different surgeries, doctor's appointments for months and months, all of that. And I was like, it took me 7 years to get this baby. We are going to cover end to end, you know, every contingency. I wanted it in a hospital.
I mean, and if you had wanted it at home, I'd want a new home after. It wasn't for me either.
John is not the best with the ick. Anything ick. It is natural. We believe in it. John just doesn't need to be as much of a part of it.
I'm not a doctor for a reason.
And like
I don't want to be.
Like they asked him if he wanted to cut the umbilical cord. And you were like,
what are we paying you for?
That seems like a medical procedure. You should be doing that. And they didn't put the curtain all the way down on my C-section. You saw a lot of me. Like interior parts that no one else has ever seen or should ever see.
Should ever see. And a lot of it all over the doctor's
foot.
White shoe.
Oh, yeah. John was a little like this the whole time. We did very good. He held my hand. Took me to the hospital, even though I told him to turn around the car. I was going home. I was not giving birth.
We're not doing this today.
We're not doing this. I want to go home with my dog and my dogs and hang out with that. But they're going to do a hospital birth because a year earlier, Christine had had a miscarriage and she hemorrhaged really bad and had to go to the hospital for that. They kind of made it sound like she almost didn't go to the hospital for that either. They were like, I'm really glad she went to the hospital. Although maybe they just meant now as opposed to then. But I was like, well, probably need some help. And then Truly is on her way and Cody's like cuddling up with her and rubbing the belly and stuff. And I'll tell you what. It really does look, this whole episode, except for the bit with Robin, that he genuinely is affectionate with Christine and loves her. This whole, he never loved her. He's always suffered.
She's still making brood for him.
I mean, that's true. I mean, I definitely have heard more and more people saying that as soon as a wife says no more kids, they're out. And that does really seem to kind of be the cycle. We don't really know about Janelle. Janelle has always said that but that's a whole different season. We get into this is very confusing to me logistically because they're like, we send all of Janelle and Christine's kids to Robin, including Mary's child, which is 15 kids total. But I'm trying to figure out why are all the kids there? Because my first assumption was, oh, Janelle was working. That's why Janelle doesn't have her kids. And Mary is working. That's why Janelle and Mary are working. And then I'm like, so then why aren't the kids there? Maybe it's summer and Christine normally watches all of the kids, which at that point would be 12 plus Robin's. But then later on, Janelle does have her kids, and it's all very confusing. And so I'm thinking more in retrospect, this was like hey, we'll have all the kids to go to Robin to show how devoted Robin is as a sister wife.
And they get a paycheck for the episode.
Well, I think the family at that point got paid as a whole. I don't know. That is a question I would like a forensic accountant to break down for us for all the seasons. Then we hear that Mary wanted 8 kids. She only got 1. Took 5 years to get the 1 child. And then 3 years prior to this episode, miscarried. And that's it for Mary, which is very sad. And like we just explained, for us, is a very relatable pain. John also wanted 8 kids, didn't you?
Sure.
So when we met on eHarmony, and when you do the eHarmony thing, they match you up on all these things. And it's stuff like, how many kids do you want? And I was 30. And so I was like, I might not have a choice. I might fall in love with a man who already has 3 kids from another marriage and doesn't want any more kids. I also knew for whatever reason, I always knew there was a chance I would have infertility. I had a great aunt who didn't have fertility problems. I had a sister who had fertility problems. So I knew it was always a risk. And so I had like on my profile, like I could or couldn't. Like I was kind of open with kids. It wasn't like a have to or a can't. And I think yours was similar. Mm-hmm. We've been dating a while and getting serious, and we talked about all these things, and we talked about infertility, and there'd be other things that we would consider and stuff like that. And when one day you're like, do you want to know the truth? And I'm like, about what? Like, what is going on? You're like, I'd really like to have 8 kids. I'm like, John.
I think I said 19.
Whatever. And I was like, John, I'm 30. Like, I think the 8, like, even if we got to work immediately, that boat has probably sailed. But we got 1, and we're happy. And when we were struggling with infertility, he told me that I was always enough, and if we never had kids, emotional. That if we never had kids, that I would always be enough, and that would be fine. And it really did look like that for a while. We were like, okay, what is the rest of our life going to look like if we're not holding place to have a child or children?
A lot more vacations.
Yeah, a lot more. Back to the actual thing that people are here for. Aspen is 15 and is going to go with Christine to watch the birth. Oh, we totally skipped over this. So they're going to the hospital. They make it sound like they might induce, they might not induce. The timeline is Christine is a week overdue, which they would not allow in my geriatric pregnancy, which is I was a little older than her. They wouldn't let us go that far. She wanted me, I got it a week before my due date because she said it's not healthy for geriatric pregnancies. I have no idea what the recommendations were when she gave birth, but that was our case. So Truly is a week overdue. The following week is Mary's 20th anniversary, which is the next episode. And 8 weeks out is Robin's marriage. So Robin is not married right now. She is a fiancé. She has, and at this point, she is now living by them.
She is a pencil wetter.
She is allegedly.
Allegedly. Oh,
we don't know. They, at this point, are... okay, so I mentioned that because it's really important to remember that 2 months after this, Robin and Cody get married and then do an 11-day honeymoon.
No, that didn't happen because he can't leave his tender-age children.
It happened.
Which apparently doesn't mean tender-aged, it just means Robin's kids.
And what's funny is they have never brought this up on the show, but the commenters have never forgotten that Truly was 8 weeks old when he left for 11 days to go on a honeymoon with Robin. We've mentioned it about 1 billion times. Comments have mentioned it 1 billion times, but I've never seen Christine trot that out, which I would have for sure. I would have been the most bitter. The people would have absolutely hated me. So they go to the hospital to find out if they're going to get induced, and on the way to the hospital, they're like, oh, it's Friday the 13th. Is that good luck or bad luck? And while they're in there, and it's very sweet when they're waiting to talk to the doctor, she's in a bed. It kind of sounds like they were going to induce her regardless, because when I went to go visit my OBGYN, not to get induced, we didn't go to a hospital bed. So it kind of seems like this was decided regardless. But anyway, he's cuddling in bed with her, and he's like, do you need me to rub your back?
His infertility problems with his other wife.
Stop it, we're not there yet. And then he goes, oh, I think Christine went, oh my gosh, it's the 13th, and Truly will be your 13th baby. And they're like, that's so cool. You definitely have to get induced. And then the doctor comes in, and Cody's like, this is my 13th baby, and it's the 13th, you have to induce. And the doctor's like, okay. And my first thought was...
Right. Yeah, that's what you're here for.
Well, my first thought was, like, that's a terrible way to make a decision. But my second thought was the doctor was probably like, yeah, I know. We're inducing you. Cool numbers or not. The baby's a week overdue. She's 30, I think 7. Like, we need to get this. You're in a hospital room, a delivery room. Like, thank you, buddy. We know what's happening.
Yeah, the doctor is in the business of having kids.
Well, we're getting there. So,
spoiler alert, so is somebody else.
So the inducer, so anyway, some period of time happens. We get a clip back to Robin taking care of all these kids and showing her...
And crying.
Showing her dollhouse that her dad or stepdad made her, and talking about all the Barbies and how there's 3 mommies in this house and there's 1 daddy and everyone has to take care of this. And I don't get how... Okay, well, to get into polygamy, I don't get how the very function of it works, because it guarantees that if multiple families do this, there's never enough women. Like it just doesn't work unless, like, if people had 80% of all births were women, it would kind of make sense, but it just doesn't. So there's that whole thing. And then I want to talk about, a lot of people are like, oh, Robin was raised in polygamy. Robin grew up in a polygamous household. And I want to make one small caveat to that, which is that what happened was her mom, after she got divorced, married a man. They lived in St. George. His first family lived in Vegas. And he would go back and forth between them. So she didn't, like... It sounds like it ends up almost being what actually happened, which is that, like, they couldn't celebrate Christmas for weeks because he would be at the other family. Is that basically he had 2 separate families. Like, he's one of those, I want to say bigots, but that's not the right word, bigamists, who have multiple families, but the families don't know. But in this case, they knew. But this is not the polygamous families that Mary, Christine, and Janelle were living. But eventually it became the reality, which is that he had a second family, a new family that he went to and then eventually stayed with.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit more. So he's there with Christine, he's loving on her, he's carrying her, and he says, you know, why don't I leave for a bit, and I'll go get my stuff, and I'll get your stuff. That supports the theory that they didn't know that they were going to induce her. But I feel like you didn't bring her to-go bag, just in case, when she's a week overdue, you're going to the hospital, you're now... But the next clip... I assume if he goes home to get stuff, the next clip is obviously him at his house in Lehigh picking up things, right? That's where the next clip is of him?
No, he's got other wives to...
The next clip is with him, with Robin at her house. And this is not him. Doesn't appear to be him getting his stuff. I don't see him gathering anything. I don't see bags in hand. He's with Robin. And then he gets a phone call from Christine, who's like, my water broke. I'm going to have the baby right away. You need to be here. And why? Maybe a little bit of like, why aren't you already here? And then Robin's like, oh, do you need anything? Do you need a granola bar? No. Do you need this? No. Do you need that? No. And then like she follows him outside to kiss him. And so, like, what I didn't remember of this was the fact that they induced. He knew she was giving birth. This was not like a random thing where on a random Tuesday, her water broke and she called him. She was at the hospital with him when he left to go get his clothes and pick up clothes for her, and instead ran to go see Robin immediately. Is sure what it looks like. Then he leaves, knowing Robin knows that this bothers Christine, gets caught on camera kissing her instead of going to Christine, and then he's like, oh, I got caught by the cameraman making out with his wife. I'm like, yeah, you couldn't.
Not his wife.
Well, it's his future wife, you are correct. But this is my thing, is 2 months later, he can spend 11 days with Robin. But he can't spend like 24 hours with Christine without seeing his other wives while she's giving birth. Like, that's just kind of low. I feel like he could have asked Logan to pack up stuff.
So you think he's rock bottom and it only gets better from here?
Yeah, this is the worst he is, and it's only up from here. No, but like he could have just said, "Hey Janelle, can you bring me some stuff when you guys come over tonight to see the baby? You could bring me stuff." Like, this is 100% him just running out the door. Oh, I got a few minutes. I better go make out with Robin. Pisses me off.
How do you really feel?
So he comes back. He helps with Christine. Christine gives birth. She goes on and on and on about how easy it was. And my first thought is we've all seen how Cody talks to the women when they're giving birth. Shh, be quiet, relax your face, don't make too many noises. And I thought, yeah, it's probably easier being in a hospital where they're telling you to like make noises, push. Like, it probably was a relief to be with people who actually know what they're doing instead of Captain Kink over there. Oh, that's what we left out. That when they were waiting before he went to Robin, the doctor comes in and Cody's like, hey.
I tried to do that. But...
Well, you tried to do it too early and now I'm doing it too late. So I guess if we halved it. So he comes in and he's like, do you have a good fertility doctor? And he's like, oh, for Christine. And he's like, no, for my other wife. She's only got one. And he goes, one ovary? And he goes, oh no, only one kid. I'm in the business of babies. Which is like such a creepy thing to say, and makes so much sense for the guy that we see now who has terrible relationships with all of his adult children, or many of his adult children, I won't say all, and still seems to value the youngest, although he doesn't spend much time with his grandkids. I think it's only about his children that he cares about.
And only about his pencil getting wet.
And both Christine and the doctor say, like, this is kind of weird. Like, it's kind of weird that because the doctor's kind of like, so they talk over each other, but Christine's like, it's kind of weird that you're doing this while I'm laboring. And the doctor's like, yeah, this is kind of weird. But yeah, we can talk to her about it. You know what else is kind
of weird?
All of it?
Polygamy.
So we see, so Christine goes on and on about how easy the hospital birth is. And I'm like, yeah, probably because you have professionals who aren't trying to tell you, mansplain to you how to give birth. And he's always like, I've been in a lot of births. Okay, doing something a lot doesn't mean you're good at it. I bet you there's a lot of things that he's done a lot that he thinks he's really good at because he knows. And I'm going to guess he is not terribly good at. Just throwing that out there. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We see an old tech alert where they send a picture of the baby. Looks like an 8-bit figurine on like a flip phone, and we see it. And all the kids. This is what I'm like, this whole like Robin took care of all the kids for Christine doesn't make sense because clearly Janelle's kids are with her at the Lehigh house, and they all go get all the kids, drive them to the hospital, and all of the kids are there. And then the ending scene is a beautiful scene of the baby in a crib. Truly is adorable, and of course all I'm doing is, there's too much stuff in there for a newborn. But of course, like, there's a camera on her, she's being observed and all that, but I was just like, there's blankets and stuffed animals around a newborn. And of course, she doesn't look like a newborn in this video. Right?
I don't know.
You don't remember what newborn is? Newborn is sort of like,
and pink.
you know, like they're not doing a lot, and this is like a baby like half rolling over to grab something and grabbing stuff. And I don't remember like a newborn. This is probably filmed toward the end, but that's about it. This is one of the episodes that I feel like this is when we start really marking the descent of all of Cody's great sins. But thank you for joining us. Remember, if you want to get these videos early, you can always join our Patreon. But if you don't join the Patreon and you watch on YouTube, we are so thankful. We appreciate it, and we enjoy coming to you week after week to bring you this recap. Okay, bye.